Today we start the 11th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. Let's dive right into it. It was November 26th, 1971. I stood on the side of a road as an Indian-made bus rattled into Vrindavan. It came to a halt. The door swung open, and out stepped a small elderly man dressed in saffron robes and carrying a wooden walking stick in hand. Śrīla Prabhupāda, I would learn, was Vrindavan's ambassador to the world. From the 4 directions, both young and old rushed to greet him. Seeing the man who had once showed such kindness to me, I melted with joy. What followed invoked cheers from the locals. Out of the same bus came 40 Kṛṣṇa devotees, women and men from a mix of nationalities and races, European, American, Latin, African, Asian, and Indian. It was the first time in history that such a large group of foreigners had come. As they got down from the bus, priests and pilgrims marveled in joy. Children smiled in fascination, while farmers looked on in disbelief. Kṛṣṇa is worshipped by hundreds of millions of Indians in Vrindavan, and Vrindavan is the holiest place of pilgrimage. The hearts of the people of Vrindavan swelled with pride to witness people of races they had never seen before, sharing what they held most dear. A ceremony began during which dignitaries, including the mayor, government officials, priests, and religious heads, welcomed Śrīla Prabhupāda back home. That elderly sadhu, who had departed from Vrindavan penniless with only a dream, had now returned as a world-renowned teacher. Śrīla Prabhupāda was born Abhay Charan to a deeply religious family in Kolkata in 1896. I had read, while in Bombay, that in 1922, the young Abhay met his guru, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. At the time of their first interaction, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta told him, "You are an educated young man. Why don't you teach the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world?" Abhay couldn't believe what he was hearing. They had not even met, yet this sadhu directed him in a life mission. At that time, Abhay was actively involved in Mahatma Gandhi's independence movement. "Who will listen to our message?" Abhay countered. "How can we spread Indian culture if we are under British rule?" Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta replied, "Whether one power or another rules is a temporary situation. The eternal reality is that we are not these bodily designations, but the soul who is eternal and full of bliss. Real welfare, work, whether individual, social, or political, should help a person to re-establish their eternal relationship with the supreme reality, Lord Kṛṣṇa." I do hear a lawnmower on, which is good because spring has come. I love to know that the grass is growing, but for your optimum listening experience, I'm going to go and close my window. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hearing Bhakti Siddhanta cite from scripture both logic and compassion, Abhay was convinced. In his heart of hearts, he accepted Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, as his spiritual master, and entered into that order with all his life and soul. "My old friend," somebody boomed out. I turned to find a smiling white man, slightly hefty with flashing green eyes, shaved head, and white robes, running toward me with raised arms. It was Guru Das, that boisterous soul who 9 months before in Bombay had brought me onto a stage to meet Śrīla Prabhupāda. He embraced me. We meet again, and in this holy place. Later that day, he led me through a series of lanes, through the arched gateway of a medieval temple, and into a small room where he told me more about the life of Śrīla Prabhupāda. In 1954, Śrīla Prabhupāda came to reside as a renunciate in Vrindavan. In this small room where we sit today, he lived a secluded life for 6 years, preparing for what was to come. As I pressed my body against the earthen floor, my eyes scanned the tiny room. A slender green lizard of about 8 inches with long wagging tail let out a croak, then raced across the clay-covered brick walls. A low table and a wooden bed with criss-cross rope for a mattress were the only furnishings. Right here, Guru Das continued, he translated the Sanskrit scriptures into English. I nodded, encouraging him to tell me more. In 1959, he took the vows of a Swami and was awarded the title A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Guru Das said. At the age of 69, in 1965, he left his home in Vrindavan to fulfill his life's mission. With less than $7 and a complimentary ticket, he boarded for Jaladuta, a cargo ship to America. He sailed over rough seas, suffering 2 heart attacks, and his 70th birthday on the voyage before arriving alone, docking first in Boston and then sailing on to New York City. A cool winter breeze drifted in from the courtyard outside, while, as part of a ceremony, temple bells clanged and priests used wooden mallets to bang on brass gongs. Bong, 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 bong. While crowds of people thronged the temple courtyard for the ritual, Guru Das continued speaking. Arriving at the New York harbor, Śrīla Prabhupāda didn't know a single soul. He struggled alone, living on the Bowery and the Lower East Side until gradually his lovable qualities and vast knowledge attracted sincere seekers of the counterculture. He transformed the hearts of many American and European youth. In 1967, I became his disciple in San Francisco. We affectionately called him Śrīla Prabhupāda, which means, at whose feet great masters sit. After only a few years abroad, he had established a worldwide movement, and now, for the first time, he's bringing a group of his eager disciples back to his home, Vṛndāvana. I shook my head in wonder at Śrīla Prabhupāda's journey. Though I too had traveled through foreign lands alone with no money and knowing no one, I had been 19 years old and in good health when I started. He began his journey at the age of 70 and traveled through foreign lands with no money, knowing no one, and all to be an instrument of the Lord's compassion. That evening, I returned to the temple to hear Śrīla Prabhupāda speak. In an overcrowded hall, with rattling ceiling fans spinning overhead, I sat on the floor waiting. Through the windows could be heard a chorus of trilling and warbling birds as the assembly sang devotional hymns. Upon Śrīla Prabhupāda's entrance, a tranquil silence descended on the room. Disciples bowed, old friends embraced him, and guests stood in awe. He was dressed in the saffron robes of a Swami, perfectly clean and neatly arranged. He sat cross-legged at the far end of the hall on a red upholstered dais. The sunset shone through many windows, bathing his dark golden complexion with soft rays. His deep brown eyes, although old and wise, glittered with the innocence of a child as they gazed affectionately at each and every member of the audience. He was quite small in stature, perhaps 5 feet and 5 inches, but his presence was immense. With his hands in a prayerful gesture, he bowed his head to welcome us, then cleared his throat. He spoke with a deep voice into the microphone. The basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone, he began. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. The missing piece, however, is where to direct our love so that everyone is included and can be happy. He paused and looked out at the audience thoughtfully. At the present moment, human society teaches one to love their country or family or their personal self, but there's no information on where to direct the loving propensity so that everyone will be happy. His voice cracked with heartfelt emotion. I sensed that he was not just teaching, but pleading with each member of the audience to understand the urgency of the message he carried. Here was a man who deeply cared, and the entire audience clung to his every word. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations or our economic and scientific progress, because we have missed this point. Closing his moist eyes and briefly entering into a trance, he seemed to be feeling the suffering of the entire world. That missing point can be found in awakening our original love for Kṛṣṇa. If we learn to love Kṛṣṇa, if we learn how to love Kṛṣṇa, then it is easy to find immediately and simultaneously love for every living being. It is like pouring water on the root of a tree. All parts of the tree are nourished. Or supplying foodstuffs to the stomach. All parts of the body are nourished. When we are situated in that position, we can enjoy a blissful life. I was so intensely focused on my spiritual search at that point in my life, and the urgency with which he begged us to revive our lost love for God affected me profoundly. The devotees invited me to stay in a house with them, but I felt awkward. I preferred resting under the trees on the bank of the Yamuna. But each day, after my early morning bath and meditations, I walked in the quiet dawn to hear Śrīla Prabhupāda's morning lecture. Although I was somewhat skeptical about his disciples, thinking it odd, for example, that someone carried cameras and tape recorders, something I had never seen any sadhu do, I was becoming more and more impressed by Śrīla Prabhupāda's knowledge and personal qualities. He had an art of explaining even intricate philosophical points with simplicity and ease. And after the class each morning, Śrīla Prabhupāda would personally take us on a tour of Vrindavan. While walking with him, I saw the same places I had seen many times, but in his company I experienced realizations like never before, as if deeper level of realities were being revealed, or as if a deeper level of reality was being revealed. When he told the story of a place, it was as if I could see with my eyes what he described. After lunchtime, I would sit in his room for several hours as he informally conversed with guests. Feeling extremely shy in his presence, I asked no questions but was content just to listen. One such afternoon, while sitting in his room, I found myself the target of a leading disciple's rebuke. "This meeting is for guests only," he said. "Please, get out of here. All devotees are performed their duties now. That's the rule." Although I did not have a shaved head, like all the other male disciples, I was the only Westerner in the room. Evidently, this man did not see me as a guest. I held a lock of my hair between my thumb and forefinger and shook it gently. "But please, see, I am not a devotee." Visibly annoyed, the disciple looked to Śrīla Prabhupāda for direction. I anxiously awaited the verdict, wanting very much to stay. Śrīla Prabhupāda lifted his eyebrows, smiled at me, and laughed heartily. "He is not a devotee. Let him stay." The disciple left in defeat. Then, with a serious but modest expression, Śrīla Prabhupāda said to me, "I appreciate your eagerness to hear." My heart was melted by the intimacy of the exchange. Another day, I happened to meet Kṛṣṇa Das Bābājī on the road. "Hare Krishna," he greeted me, and after returning his greeting, I informed him that Śrīla Prabhupāda had come. His face lit up. "Wonderful! Please take me to see my dear good brother." Together we strolled through the lanes, hurrying around honking rickshaws and water buffalo sleeping on the road. After climbing a flight of steps, we entered the door of Śrīla Prabhupāda's room. Sitting on the floor behind a low table, Śrīla Prabhupāda was speaking to a dozen guests. When we entered and the eyes of these two great souls met, their faces blossomed with joy. Kṛṣṇa Das Bābājī erupted into smiles. "Hare Krishna," he exclaimed. Śrīla Prabhupāda beamed with a bliss I'd never seen on any human face. A broad smile radiated and his eyes gleamed with tears. He too cried out, "Hare Krishna," and leapt from his seat to greet Bābājī. Both rushed to embrace, tears of happiness filling their eyes. Śrīla Prabhupāda then escorted Bābājī to sit on the same cushion as he. For the next hour they filled the room with laughter as they conversed in their native Bengali language, oblivious to all others in the room. Sitting only a few meters away, I observed, bubbling over with excitement. What an incredible spiritual relationship these two men had. Never had I seen such love and honor between two human beings. I felt I had received a glimpse into the spiritual world. Only a couple days passed when several of Śrīla Prabhupāda's disciples pressured me to make a commitment. "It is wrong for you to be living in Vrindavan," they said. "You should join our movement and travel with us." Although I was accustomed to dealing with such pressures, I was not happy with it. If ever I were to commit myself to a teacher, which I wanted to do with all my heart, the decision would have to be impelled by deep faith and inspiration, not by anyone's pressure. One afternoon, I rushed to a garden where Śrīla Prabhupāda was scheduled to speak. But I was late. I found myself amid grazing cows. Leafy trees swarmed with sweetly singing birds, and a crowd of native Vrajabasis gathered under the warming winter sun. Śrīla Prabhupāda was just departing, and hundreds of people lining the path bowed to him as a gesture of respect. I was among them. As I lifted my head from the sandy earth, I found his feet, covered by simple canvas slippers, planted just inches from my face. On my knees, looking up, I was face to face with him. His demeanor was grave. "How long have you lived in Vrindavan?" he asked. My mind squirmed, fearing he too would chastise me for living here. I replied, "About 6 months, Śrīla Prabhupāda." His large dark eyes gazed down into mine. It was as if nothing else existed but that gaze. I felt that he knew everything about me. My strengths and weaknesses, virtues and faults, all I longed to achieve and all I prayed to be rid of. I was speechless. Perhaps a minute passed in this way. Then before my eyes his face blossomed into a munificent smile. "Very good," he said, rubbing my head affectionately. "Vrindavan is such a wonderful place." In his glance and in this briefest of exchanges, I experienced the love of an eternal friend, a benevolent parent, and of God. Turning slowly, he walked away down the path, his wooden cane tapping the ground with each step. I closed my eyes and pondered. He is such a busy man, with tens of thousands of people the world over waiting for a moment of his time. Why did he stop for me? I have nothing to offer. I am just a penniless nobody who sleeps under a tree. That small gesture had a profound impact on me, more than many of the miracles I had witnessed. It was an impact I could neither understand nor explain. Perhaps, I thought, the miracle of being an instrument of kindness is the most powerful of all. For some time, I had been troubled by a fundamental philosophical dispute over whether God was ultimately impersonal or personal. On the one hand, I had heard some yogis and philosophers profess that ultimately God is impersonal and formless, but that he accepts a temporary material form as an avatara, a descension, when he descends into the world for the benefit of all beings. After accomplishing his mission, he again merges into his formless existence. All form and personality, according to the impersonalists, is a non-permanent product of material illusion. In the final state of liberation, the soul sheds its temporary identity and becomes one with God, merging into the all-pervading spiritual existence. On the other hand, I had heard other yogis and philosophers profess that God is the supreme person, that his spiritual form is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. At the time of liberation, the soul enters into the kingdom of God, where it eternally serves the all-beautiful personality of God in pure love. I often pondered this apparent contradiction. How could they both be correct? God must ultimately be one or the other. Either he must be ultimately impersonal or personal. Out of respect for my beloved teachers, it had been difficult for me to think that any of them were wrong. Some attacked the opposing point of view, while others refrained from arguing by keeping the subject vague. I found that many spiritual teachings were similar until they came to this point. What is the goal I should aspire to? I wondered. Should I strive to transcend dualities, to become one with an impersonal, formless God? Or should I strive to purify my heart, to serve a personal Lord with unconditional love in his eternal abode? One afternoon, a guest asked Śrīla Prabhupāda this very question. Is God formless and impersonal, or does he have form and personality? The chattering of birds, screeching of monkeys, and honking of distant rickshaw horns were silenced by the anticipation in my heart. I sat up with attention, eager to hear his answer. Śrīla Prabhupāda slowly leaned forward, his face perfectly relaxed and full lips curved downward at the edges. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, his elbows rested on the low table in front of him, and his hands were clasped together under his chin. With a grave gaze, he quoted from the Vedas and explained, "We must first understand the inconceivable nature of God. The Supreme Lord is simultaneously personal and impersonal. It is an eternal truth that he is both formless and that he has an eternal blissful form." I felt a warm, peaceful sensation flood my chest. With one hand, Śrīla Prabhupāda stretched his index finger upward. The Lord's impersonal, all-pervading energy is called Brahman, and Bhagavan is the personal form of God, who is the energetic source and never under the influence of illusion. Take, for example, the sun. The form of the sun as a celestial object and the formless sunlight can never be separated, as they exist simultaneously. They are different perspectives of the sun. Similarly, there are two different schools of transcendentalists who focus on different aspects of the one truth. The impersonalists strive to attain liberation in the Lord's impersonal, formless light, while the personalists strive for eternal loving service to the Lord's all-attractive form. There is no contradiction. Similarly, the soul is part and parcel of the Lord, simultaneously one with God and different from God. Qualitatively, we are one with God, being eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But quantitatively, we are always but a part, just as the sun ray is but a tiny part of the sun, and yet has the same qualities as the sun. We are both one with God and different from God. God is the independent controller, but when the soul misuses its God-given independence, it forgets its relation to the Lord and falls into illusion and subsequent suffering. Leaning back against the wall, he tilted his head slightly and gazed directly into my eyes. The two schools, personalists and impersonalists, both approach different aspects of the one God. He went on to explain how Kṛṣṇa, his form, qualities, personality, and abode were unlimited, and that all the true religions of the world worshipped the same one God. He had simply revealed himself in different ways at different times. How beautiful! With these simple and intelligent words, Śrīla Prabhupāda had harmonized two apparently opposing views. As I listened to him, tears of appreciation welled up in my eyes. Yes, now it all makes so much sense, I thought. A dilemma that had confused my progress was now completely removed. A spontaneous, joyous smile stretched across my face. Śrīla Prabhupāda reciprocated with a smile too, one endowed with both wisdom and serenity. One guest asked him, "Are you the guru of the world?" Śrīla Prabhupāda meekly bowed his head and cast his eyes toward the floor. "I am everybody's servant," he said. "That's all." I found a special charm in this exchange. Śrīla Prabhupāda was so unpretentious, so free and comfortable in all that he did and said. I recalled the humility of dear Ghanshyam, who had lived in a hallway outside a closet for 50 years. Śrīla Prabhupāda was a learned scholar, eloquent orator, and a powerful yogi who had founded a worldwide society with thousands of followers. Dignitaries came to honor him daily. Still, that natural spirit of humility was present. I'm small. God is everything. Paradoxically, that humility empowered him with such unlimited confidence and determination. After the meeting, I stood up and offered Śrīla Prabhupāda a rose. He smelled it and graciously bowed his head. Departing from the house, I wandered back to the Yamuna. Elated, Prabhupada's words had put the puzzle of personalism and impersonalism together, piece by piece, and in so many other ways he had impressed me deeply. But who is this amazing man? I wondered. What is he like as a person? And that is a question we'll have to explore next time as we conclude the 11th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home. Thank you for listening. I enjoyed that. If that sparked any curiosities, inquiries, comments, insights, etc., you're welcome to share them. And I'll be blessed to be able to read the 12th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home with you next time.